Moti.
Source of influencers.
My name's Harry Grigsby. I'm with LHGFX Photography. My personal IG is Harry LHGFX. And that's probably the primary way that you can reach us. Been doing photography for, I guess, on and off since about 1999, 1998. More full-time in Los Angeles since 2009. Full-time. Been working with Lee right around that same time, 2009. Alan joined in with LHGFX about 6 months to a year later. And so a lot of people ask what LHGFX is. It's just Lee Hagen, which is my partner, Harry Grigsby. That's the HG, so LHG, and FX is just for like effects, FX. That's it, Los Angeles. Here we are.
So, is Lee a friend of you? How did you meet him?
Lee, I actually didn't know Lee prior to meeting him at a fitness show back in 2008, I believe. But we did have, we had some of the same friends. We even hung at maybe some of the same places. We're both from Minnesota, but we never really crossed paths. Although it turns out, like talking later with him, we probably ran track against each other back in high school. And I mean, we weren't aware who each other was, but I distinctly remember racing against him back in high school. When I was a senior, he would have been a junior.
So why did you start? Why did you thought of starting in business together? How did you get started?
Basically, we were both shooting fitness. We were shooting for a particular coach that was coaching at the time, like over 100 competitors. And so she would bring in 3 or 4 or 5 photographers to shoot just with her team. And she'd brought in this, I'd been working with her already for a few years. And she was like, oh, I'm bringing in this other photographer, Lee Hagen. I'm like, oh, cool, like he looks like he does good work. At the time I didn't know it was a he, I just said, you know, looks like nice work. And then she introduced me and she said, this is Lee Hagen. I'm like, you're a dude, you look just like Jason Priestley. I'm like, oh great, more competition. But it worked out okay. Like we both shot, you know, we weren't really competing against each other at that time for anything. And he called me up and said, hey, rather than like be in competition, why don't we join forces? And I thought it was a good idea. So we started the name LHGFX, and as they say, the rest is history.
What about Alan?
Alan joined us. He was coming out of a divorce. Alan and I used to shoot together before he got married. And then he was married and kind of stopped shooting. And once he got divorced, he's like, hey, I want to shoot again. You know, can I work with you? And of course, I was like, yeah, like it'd be great to work with you again. So he joined forces with us basically not too long after we started. So, yeah.
But who's Alan to you?
So Alan, so Alan is not a friend or an acquaintance. I mean, he is. He's like my best friend, I guess you could say that. But he's also my brother, my twin brother. We're 6 minutes apart. He is the younger brother, which when we're younger, like it was funny. I'm like, hey, I'm older. He'd be like, yeah, I'm stronger. I'm like, yeah, but I'm faster. So, and now he's like, how you're older, right? So like we've kind of like flipped the scale a little bit as we've grown a little bit older, right? Now we want to be young, and he's happy to be the younger brother. So, I mean, getting started in photography, I mean, truth be told, even back in, as far as I can remember, in elementary school, hiking with my folks, or you know, going camping and stuff. My brother and I always wanted to be the ones with the camera, like taking pictures. When we graduated school, high school, in college still, Alan ran into a photographer back in our hometown, Minneapolis, he's at the beach, you know, he always had his shirt off, and he's pretty shredded, not big shredded, just lean, right? Back then, fitness modeling really wasn't a thing. You were just either a male model or a female model, right? There wasn't necessarily a category for fitness model. But so this photographer approached my brother, and he's like, hey, like, you should do some pictures. And then he's like, I got a twin brother. And I mean, so he rolled me into it, and he's like, let's do some pictures. And so that was our first experience to really to the industry. We did some pictures with this guy, and a lot of it was like he used to be a sculptor, and so he really worked a lot with black and whites and with bodies and creating shadows and lines, and what I would say now is like modern fitness photography, right? But super cool artistic stuff. And we shot with him for a couple of years, and you know, we managed to get 1 or 2 print jobs, and we did a couple commercials back when we were younger. We flew to Miami to try and pursue modeling, and then I had a child, and then 3 months later he had a child, and we're like, okay, we need to be more serious, right? We gotta like actually have a regular job. And so we quit trying to model, and I was working retail at the time, which was a lot of fun for me, and moved up and within that. And then that job, they overextended their debt. They ended up going out of business. Everyone lost their job. My brother lost his first. He was managing at a different store location than I was. And then I stayed with him until they ended up closing all the stores. I helped him close all the stores. He ended up going and working at Prudential. And then he's like, you should come work at Prudential. So, I mean, it's funny, like most of the jobs that we've had ever since we were kids, like we worked at the same company, with the exception of 1 or 2 jobs. Even like if you go back, like first job was a paper route, right? We both delivered papers together. In high school, we both worked at McDonald's. I worked at Burger King, he worked at Hardee's, you know, type of thing. And then we were both working at the clothing store. It was called Merry-Go-Round. And then he got let go, and then I got let go, and then he started working for Prudential, and he's like, you should come over. So I went over, I started working for Prudential as well, and I worked there for a couple of years. And then they decided to outsource the division that I was in, which was customer service. And so I was let go. And I decided that I didn't want to work for anybody else again. I wasn't going to work corporate. I wanted to do my own thing. And I always had a love for photography, so I decided to become a photographer. And my first job was with Life Touch Portraits. And I took that job primarily because my daughter at the time was still in elementary school. And sorry, this is getting long-winded, guys. But she was working in elementary school, and the office that I took the job at was literally like a mile away from her school. And our office hours were we started work after school started, and then we got off work before school got out. And that was because we were school portraits, right? Life Touch did school portraiture, so we'd go into the schools, take all the pictures of the kids, like all your class photos and your individual schools or individual photos for all the students. And so we were off work before she got out of school. So for me, that was like the perfect job, right? I wasn't making as much money, but definitely like I was able to spend a lot more time with my daughter. So I'd get out of work, and I'd go pick up my daughter or go to her class and sit in her class until they got out of school, and then we'd go do homework and play and whatever, and then she'd go back home. So it was the perfect job for me, and it just reinforced my love for what I was doing. Like I already wanted to do photography. I was already playing around with it part-time, shooting with a friend of mine who was a singer, and really pretty girl. She'd modeled and stuff, and so we were photographing with her, and I knew some people that were doing fitness competitions, and so I was photographing them and helping them with their fitness routines. And so really, like, I fell in love with taking pictures and that whole aspect of it. And Alan was the same. He was doing pictures, you know, we were both taking pictures at the same time. Sometimes together, you know, we were shooting just different angles, and sometimes like he would shoot a girl and I'd shoot like the same girl a week or two later, or vice versa, right? So, I mean, Minneapolis is a pretty small market, but yeah, that's how it started.
And how did you end up moving to LA?
I moved to LA primarily because my daughter, her mom had married a guy that was in the service, and they moved out to LA, and so I left everything that I had there and came out to LA and to be closer to her, right, so that I could just drive to see her instead of fly to see her. So primarily because of that. But I mean, I thought about it, right? Like, it's also for me to be in a climate where I can shoot year round versus 3 months out of the year outdoors. Minneapolis is brutal, right? Like, they have 2 seasons, winter and road construction, right? They call it. So the summers are short. It's like a short period of time, and then winter seems to last all year round. It's not true, but it seems like it's true when you live there.
Follow the Moti on Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat.